All right. Well, look, let's get into the Reds. I'm going to kick us off with significant ins for the Reds. Luke Jones, that's a big name coming back. He's coming back from racing 92. So we assume he will be, I guess, getting some good game time. And what do you think Luke Jones is trying to look to make the Wallabies for the World Cup or just returning home? I mean, who knows?
Man, I'm sure he's trying to look to make the Wallabies.
I forget how old Luke Jones is now, but
31. He's
31.
He's my age, mate.
There you go.
Still plenty of time.
Spring chicken. And otherwise, other significant ins, we've got significant ins. We've got Sula Siosi, who's a prop coming in, Connor Anderson, back rower, Wilson Blythe, back rower, and Kenyan Tuakipul, who's is he?
Tuakipulu. Yeah, look, they're ins. They're not significant ins. I think Luke Jones is their significant.
That's true. I ran out after I started with Luke Jones. I was like, I ran out of significant ins. But look, I will say significant ins. The defense coach Phil Blake, he's come across, and he's I think a good get for the Reds. He's come across after 6 years with Wasps and Leicester over in the Premiership, and he's from all reports quite the hard man defense coach. So I think he'll very much suit the Brad Thorne coaching squad, and we'll see how he goes. But Nell, significant outs. There's a few more of those. You want to take us through those?
Yeah, look, they've had quite a few outs. They've got Feo Fotuweka. He's headed across to Lyon. Alex Murphy, who we thought was going to be their lock-in hooker for the future, obviously had an injury that disrupted him last year. Lucan Salakai-Lotto gone across to the Saints. Angus Scott Young also gone across to the Saints. Both been playing very well over there. Hamish Stewart, who was just the glue, I think, of their back line and underrated in lots of ways. He's headed across to the Force as well. But Ndroa Sessi, we touched on, and there's a couple other names as well.
Nice. All right, well, let's get into the best starting 15 as we see it. Let's go with the front row. We've got Harry Hoopert, we think, after a strong Australia A series, starting in at loose head. The hooker, look, I mean, toss a coin here for hooker. I don't know who we ended up saying. I'm now looking at the slides. Coins. I think we ended up saying Matty Faisler, but look, Richie Asiata, Josh Nasser, and Matty Faisler.
I think we went all three between the three of us, didn't we? I went Nasser.
Yeah, well, I said Asiata.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. So,
I could
it's anyone's guess, basically. And then look, tough. In terms of, I mean, we have said
so he trumped us.
yeah, he got us. In terms of we're saying the best starting 23. Obviously, we would have Taniela Tupou here, but he's not likely to be returned for the entire season, is he? He's out.
Correct.
He's in for the entire season. I've put a star against Sefa Agassi, even though he's the guy who's going to be there.
Sefa Agassi is probably the most experienced player then for tight head. But as we'll talk about, I guess he could possibly also be Baby Thor in Zane Nongor, another player I'm very excited about. But
you're touching on it now, so why don't we do the reserve front row at the same time? Why don't we go start?
I like this change up. Love it. All right, Dane Zander in at loose head. He's been quite good, but we just think Harry Hoopert might have the trump on him. Again, pick a hooker from the squad. Asiata, Josh Nasser, Matty Faisler.
I'm picking Faisler out of the squad just for the record. I'm going to go Nelson to be the most wrong.
Yeah, love that. I'll pile on with that as well. I'm in.
It could easily happen.
And then Baby Thor, if he's not starting, which look, I think is he still 21? Is he only 21 years old?
He can no longer be called Baby Thor. He's 6 centimeters taller than Taniela Tupou, but only 1 kilo lighter. He's bigger.
He's Baby Thor, man. Okay. I'm sorry.
Bigger Thor.
But anyway, I am very excited about him. And look, spoiler alert, but could be an absolute smoky this year. Could come through and just obliterate everyone.
It's pretty exciting. Look, did you want to go into the locks as well, Cargie?
All right, I'll do the locks. Fine. We've got Luke Jones. We reckon will be in there starting. He's an absolute quality lock. And then it'll be between, so with Lucan Salakai-Lotto departing, it'll be between Ryan Smith and Angus Blythe. Ryan Smith, I think we had thinking has the chocolates. So Angus Blythe to start on the bench in our best 15. Nels, back row.
These guys are stacked for some exciting players, I think, in the back row. Liam Wright, we've gone as their number 6 with Fraser McWright locking down that 7 jersey. Both brilliant 7s in their own right. Harry Wilson fighting himself back into a Wallabies call-up under Eddie Jones. It could happen, so he's going to fight his way in. And we've got on the bench Ciro Uru, who covers lock, covers back row. He's very, very versatile. For the halves, we've got none other than Tate McDermott and James O'Connor, and only carrying Kalani Thomas with another player covering 10 in fullback. Harry will touch on.
Yeah, that's right. No, we've got Hunter Paisami and Josh Fluke as our top choice centre pairing. It was a close call, this one. I think we have Isaac Henry on the bench to make out a 3 or 4 back bench. You put 4 in there, Nels. You're a maniac. You have no idea what you're doing.
3, mate.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the notes, not our image. I'm sorry, you don't know what you're doing. Anyway,
I didn't do that.
Isaac Henry in the 22 jersey. So obviously he's probably more of an inside, and it shows that Paisami is probably going to be the versatile player that will play 12 or 13, depending on who he's partnered by. But we're going to go Paisami and Fluke in the centres, and then we're going to go with Jordi Pataya and Vunivalu to take down the wing spots with John.
And how good
fullback. And how good, yeah. And in fullback on the bench, we're going to go outside backs. Filippo Dangunu is probably still going to be the first choice there, but I expect Matt Greeley to push him for game time. And I know Nelson's got one eye on Lawson Crichton and Floyd Aubrey to be pushing into that wider squad or wider playing group as well.
Yep, beautiful. Did you say Jock Campbell? Did I just miss it? Tune out and hear you.
Did, yeah.
You did, yeah. Nice. Jock Campbell starting fullback, obviously.
Just like the rest of the Australian rugby selectors.
Very good. All right. Well, look, key questions for this one. We've already talked about it a lot, but hooker, what's the hierarchy in terms of hooker? As you heard it here first, we all picked someone different to be starting. So look, we'll obviously rip each other when we get to round 1 and we see who it is. But I think it's not clear. That's the exciting. So that's definitely one of the key questions for the Reds. There's opportunity there to really lock that down and make a name for themselves.
All 3 of them only got shots through injuries of the player before them last year and did very well. Far better than we expected.
No one took anyone's spot, but they all did.
No.
I know it's again. We need the central rugby system so we can spread out the hookers throughout the Australian Conference. You know, Waratahs, we're stacked with 3 good ones. Was it a couple of years ago we needed one and the Reds had them all? You know what I mean? It was just like spread them around, please. The Rebels, I don't know. Anyway.
I think the huge question in that front row, though, to be honest, is we've had Taniela Tupou as the anchor of that scrum for so long. How do they go with the young guys that have been building there for probably 2 or 3 seasons now? Are they actually developing enough under Brad Thorne as the guy that is so good at preparing players physically for Super Rugby? Are the likes of Hupert, Xander, Nongor physical enough and powerful enough to actually match it with the top props in the competition? For me, that's a huge if. And if they don't, I think it's going to be their absolute downfall. It's quite clearly the Achilles heel in this side.
Yeah, look, my perspective as the front rower is that I think Hupert and Xander are well and truly up to the task. I think they're both absolute quality loose heads. And then it's just going to be, can Sefa Agassi bring it? Look, he's certainly got a few years of experience, been at the Rebels a couple of years, then been up at the Reds. And if he can't, then just stick baby Thor in there and get it done. You know what I mean? I see him as, he's Thor 2.0. Get him in there, give him some game time and watch him blossom and take over and make my fantasy team. But no, that is certainly an important question, Harry. The set piece is a big deal. But next key question is centres. So we talked about it. There's Hunter Paisami, he's starting. And then it's about how do you want to go? So there's Josh Fluke, who was just being talked about, by Wallabies selectors before Eddie Jones has come on in to shake things up. Who knows? Otherwise, you've got Isaac Henry, who's more of a 12, which means Paisami could play 13, where he's been playing for the Wallabies. But Paisami's been mainly playing 12 for the Reds. And there's also the possibility that Jordi Pataya could play 13, as he has in the past. But, that kind of actually... that takes us on to the next question, which is where will Jordi Pataya play?
We hope not. We definitely hope Pataya doesn't play 13.
Yeah.
I think they've got to persist with the experiment that he should be a fullback, right? Like, he's obviously going to be the next Reece Hodge for us, the versatile player that can probably fit in anywhere. but I think he needs to build a bit of time there. So, you know, if something happened to Campbell, I think I'd just stick him there for the entire season. But otherwise, I do think he still deserves an opportunity, Campbell, to get the bulk of the games, but maybe 1 in 4 should be Pataya in that jersey.
Yeah. I think one of the tricky things is that there's so much risk in their wingers that, you know, Pataya fills a role for them, but they've got Dungunu, who's a risk for them. They've got Vunivalu, who's a risk for them. So we're probably going to see
isn't
those
a risk,
guys.
mate. He's just a weapon. Come on.
Yeah, okay. They're all potentially brilliant, but there's some real risk there for them. And I mean, they do have young other players coming through, like Mac Reilly, who's been exciting at every time he's had a chance. And I mean, Jock Campbell, he's now a Wallaby fullback. It's pretty tough to keep shifting them around.
Yep, fair enough. All right, let's push on. We have one more key question. Yep,
I've got one last one.
Yep.
Can James O'Connor change the perception that he's not up to it at 10? Because obviously he's going to be trying to play hard and play his best to make the Wallabies. But how early in the season or how late in the season, if it's not going well for the Reds, knowing that James O'Connor's likely to leave at season's end, do they throw it to the young guys coming through and say, no, Lawson Crichton or Tom Liner, you're the future. The Reds aren't performing quite as well as we want them to. James O'Connor's not up to it. We need to put someone else in.
I think he gets given every chance for them until it looks like if the season has absolutely blown up and they have absolutely nothing to go for, that's the only way they go, well, we're just not going to start James O'Connor. We're going to bring a young guy.
Yep, I'm back, Nels, on that. Look, I really liked Lawson Crichton from what we saw of him. I thought he was really, really good, and I'm looking forward to seeing him develop. But no, I think James O'Connor gets every opportunity. All right, let's push on. Stocks are rising. Look, we already talked about it. Sefa Agase has just been given the shot with Tupou out. His prayers were answered. I think gets the starting role. Baby Thor, Zane Nongor gets, will certainly get a lot more game time. He's, still a young prop, young buck, but it's an opportunity like this which will see him develop further, getting some actual game time. And then Josh Fluke, we talked about. We've seen some glimpses of his potential, but anyway, his stocks are certainly rising. We could see a lot of him this year. Stocks are falling. What do we think, guys? Nels?
That's not me, mate. I don't agree with this. I'm going to stay away from it.
I think that someone has to actually blink and lose out in the back row from those starters out of Wright, McWright, and Wilson. I wonder if Wilson's going to be the guy because he's a light body and he's probably not quite big enough. But I think I'm not saying he's going to drop all the way, which I think is why Nelson's freaking out and losing his mind. But I think Fraser McWright might lose a bit more game time this year. I think that they really value the leadership of Liam Wright. And I think Seru Iru has been playing so well that he's going to demand that he gets some game time in the 6 or the 8 jersey. And given Liam Wright's versatility, I think Fraser McWright's going to just take a step backwards this year from a work rate, scoring, kind of fantasy footy perspective, I guess, for the boys that play that kind of game.
Yeah, look, you know what? I'll actually back you on that just because I think we've got Liam Wright in at 6 and Fraser at 7 as our best 15 for sure. But I agree. We want to see Seru Iru get in there, but also Connor Vest. He's just the type of player that Brad Thorne really likes, and he's just come off a really strong season with Auckland in the NPC. He actually was really, really good and learnt a lot in that role over there. So absolutely agree that we could see Fraser or Harry Wilson could be the one to lose out a little bit there. Smokies, Nels.
Oh, look, we've touched on him again. It's Zane Nongor. Does he get his shot there with Taniela Tupou?
You guys can't name him in Stocks Rising and Smokies.
Mate, I'll name him in everything, mate. Name him in everything.
Yeah. Assume
you've put his name down in every single section.
Except Stocks are falling. That's the only one that he's not in, right?
Look, the one I added to that's Mac Reilly, 20-year-old. He's been in the system for a few years now. I think he's a very, very exciting player coming through, and there's a good chance we see him in the 23. And, if there is an injury to someone at fullback, if they don't decide they want to be throwing Pataya at fullback, if that's not how they want to go moving forward, I think Mac Reilly's proven himself that he can be someone to fill that role for them. And he is, I genuinely think, a very exciting player. He's very agile, very small, but he's got a bit of a kick on him. He's electric, and he definitely can break open a side. I think his biggest question mark could be defence, but we have seen glimpses of him working very hard in D. So I think, he's got a chance to be a smoky this year.
Yeah, and the
Awesome.
one I had was, I already kind of mentioned him, but Seru. I think if they give him the opportunity, he's the kind of guy that he might just play too well that they can't take it back off of him. You know, it's kind of like, well, you got to take the jersey off him. We gave him one game. He had an absolute blinder. Liam Wright, Fraser McWright, Harry Wilson. One of you has to play well enough to take the jersey off this bloke. All three of you do. And I could just see him just making one of those jerseys his own.
I think, is he eligible? He could be a Wallaby by the end of the year. Things could go that well for him that I think he can be a Wallaby at the Rugby World Cup. He's genuinely a brilliant player, and he could be the perfect 6.
Absolutely. Well, look, that rounds out the Reds preview.
Honestly, so good.
And that of our 3 initial previews. We'll in episode 3, we'll come back, hit you with the other 3 Australian teams.